Nobody wants to be the guy that loses the gig, right? You want to be the guy that gets the gig and then retains that thing until you want to leave or until the artist dies. I mean, you want to just ride off into the sunset and that's that. Well, sometimes the gig ends. And then in my situation, it ended really quickly. So we're going to talk about 2 situations where that happened to me. So I'm 32 now. Let's go back 9 years. I'm 23, newly married, and I audition and get the gig for a country singer named Neil McCoy. He is a monster entertainer and a super nice guy, but I squandered the opportunity that I had. A buddy of mine who was leaving the gig to do a Nashville gig offered to put in a good word for me. I still had to audition, so I did a 3-video audition. I paid $100 to a buddy of mine in his Tulsa home studio to edit the audio, and then I synced it with one of those old flip cameras. And then they asked me to do a minute-long solo at like 120 BPM or something like that. And I do. And about a week later, I get offered the gig. I have a 2-week lead time to where I can just study the board tapes and learn the material. What I do is I chart the songs and then never play them again. Once again, I was super green, and I was very, very confident that I was going to be able to kill it. And I should not have been, because it was bad. So I go and do the first show, and it's a train wreck. We're in Austin playing for a bunch of senators over at Stubbs Barbecue, and it was awful. I go on his bus afterwards, and I'm begging, like, oh, I'm so sorry, I can do better. And he's like, I sure hope so, because you sucked. That's actually what happened. So after that weekend, they say, basically, you need to have a killer weekend next week or you're done. So what do? I go home and practice my butt off. No, I don't. I don't practice at all. I spend time with my family and my dog, and that's that. And next weekend comes and goes, and I sucked. But somehow in my head, I still think that I'm going to be able to retain this gig. But I get called back to the back lounge at like 10:30 at night. And they sit me down and they say, we need to talk. I say, oh, okay, what's about? And then they say,
we're going to go in another direction.
And I have no idea what that means. So I'm just like,
yeah, sounds good. What are we going to do next?
And they say,
we're going to let you go.
What?
Yeah.
What?
They fire me. So now I'm crying and apologizing. I go into the front lounge and tell the rest of the band, and they're like, oh, Ben, that sucks. No way. They're going to let you go. And I'm sure they were really stoked because I was not doing that gig justice. And when they get us back to bus call at like 12:30 at night, and I just get my drums and I drive home. 4.5 hours back to Tulsa. I'm like, screw it. I can't look at these people anymore. I'm done. So I go back home, and I'm depressed for the better part of 2 or 3 months. I have to beg for my top 40 cover band gig back in Tulsa. And my wife finally says, snap out of it because we need you. Like, we have a dog at the time, no kids. She says, but we need you back. Like you wherever you're at, figure it out on your own time, but we need you back. So that's what snapped me out of it. And I said, okay. One of the positive things I'm going to take from this is that I'm never going to get fired again from not knowing the music. And that's true. I never have been. But now we're going to go ahead 7 years. We've been in Nashville maybe 4 or 5 years. And I get a text message from a buddy of mine saying that this band called 1,000 Horses is auditioning drummers because their drummer just quit like while on the road. And he says, just contact their management. So cold emailing management is a very difficult thing. I've never done it before. I'd never done it since. Strike that, reverse it. I had never done it before, and I've never done it since. There we go. I emailed them saying, hey, my name is Ben Satterley. These are the number of gigs I played on, la, 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 la. Here's some videos to, crap I've done. And I don't expect to hear back anything. Well, that was a Saturday. Tuesday rolls around. My wife, my son, and my mother-in-law are all sick, and I'm just taking care of them, spraying Lysol in the air, right? I get an email like at 5 o'clock that night saying, hey, you're going to be able to audition tomorrow at 5 p.m. I email them back immediately and says, whoa, I don't have enough time to learn. My family's sick. Is it okay if I'm on charts? I said, no problem. So what I do is I not only learned the 3 songs they asked me to do, but I learned the other 3 songs because they're opening up for Jason Aldean at the time. So when I show up tomorrow, I'm going to not only know the 3 songs they asked, but 3 other songs. So I'm trying to edge out the competition, right? It's a good idea. That's a really good idea. So what I do is I show up and I just kind of try to put out the vibe, And when they asked me what song I like to do, I said any song off the Aldean set. So immediately some of the guys that are on the phone kind of go, because I've already differentiated myself from the other guys. Not to say they weren't great players. They were all great players. But that was something that I knew nobody else had done. So I do the gig. I do the audition. And I go home. And one of the things when I audition, hopefully you do your best. Once I do my best or as good as I could have done, I say a little prayer. I say, okay, that's it. If I'm supposed to have it, I'll get it. If not, no worries. So I go home thinking I'm not going to get it. Why would I? And then about an hour later, I get a call. They said, okay, you got the gig and you're also band leader now. I go,
What?
yeah. So I go and rehearse. 2 days later, we're opening up for Tim McGraw at Tortuga Festival. So that's 30,000 people. The problem is, this little itty bitty problem is, I'm struggling with depression and anxiety again because I hadn't had a gig and I was feeling down and just kind of embarrassed. So when you get an amazing gig and you're already not happy, the misconception is that you're going to be all of a sudden happy, or all of a sudden you're going to be fulfilled, and that your life now has purpose. The truth of the matter is, most oftentimes you realize how unhappy you are and how nothing in the physical is going to change that. It was a mental thing. And so even though I was on this gig, my head wasn't in it. My nerves were completely shot. And I lasted about 3 weeks on that gig before I was let go. Now, before I was let go, I played one of the tightest shows musically I've ever done. It was at the Stagecoach Festival. So there's Coachella, which is like the pop rock version, and then Stagecoach, which is just country. About a week later, I played Stagecoach main stage. And not only did I do one of the tightest shows I've ever done, but some of my favorite people were watching me going like, sounds good, bro. And so that rather than me just being like, wow, God, this is an amazing opportunity, thank you so much, I looked out in the crowd and felt nothing. And that's when I realized something was really wrong. Cut to a week later, I do a show in Canada, and it's a freaking train wreck. I misfire the tracks, and the SPDS stops. The big intro with like thunderbolts and claps and the intro to the song stops, and I just have to count it off. So it's already off to a bad start, and my nerves never recover. Anyways, the next week, I get back, and I get a call from their manager. He says,
Hey Ben, how's everything going?
It's going pretty good. We had a little bit of a rough start, but it's getting better every time.
That's not what I heard.
My heart's racing. I'm going, oh God. Oh God. No, please, not this again, not this again.
but then I collect my thoughts, and I say, you know what? I'm going to take it like a man. And I'm just going to say, you know what? Thank you so much for the opportunity. I understand. And, I'm sorry it didn't work out. That's not what happened. This is what happened. Fire. Seriously, I was a freaking wreck, you guys. I was like, fine, I'm gonna kill myself. I don't mean to be joking, but I was seriously considering suicide. And it was because I was in such a dark place that my value was so wrapped up in having this gig or having a gig. I just wanted to have a gig. And so when I lost the gig, I didn't know how to deal with it. My psyche, my mind just kind of shut down. So I go from playing Stagecoach, sold out crowd, and opened up for Jason Aldean, anywhere from 16 to 20,000 people every night, to a week and a half later, learning how to fillet fish at Green Hills, Whole Foods. So I go from being a rock star to a fishmonger, coming home stinking like fish, where my wife, bless her heart, was greeting me at the door going, hey, babe, how was work today? Make sure you take your shoes off, and you smell so bad, so please take a shower. And I will say this, though, guys, all joking aside, whatever pride or I guess the word would be arrogance I had was shot. And it ended up being such a blessing because I realized that my value was so wrapped up in having a gig or being a drummer or being a musician or being better than somebody, when in reality, my value rested in who I am as a father, as a husband, as a son, as a friend. And it took me getting a gig that I thought I really wanted and losing it in the most humiliating way possible, to come out the opposite end going, I'm just happy to be here. And I've actually been able to share that story with several of my students, about what not to do on gigs, obviously, but also about just not taking life for granted. Because I mean, we're all here and we're all kind of struggling, especially right now with the freaking quarantine. It sucks. But when I came to terms with who I am and it not being so wrapped up in a gig, because let me tell you guys, gigs come and go. Um, the gig could end because they get dropped from the label, or you could just hit them on a bad day and they fire you, or the whole band gets let go, or they just want to go in a different direction. I came out the opposite end so thankful, so grateful for every moment that I had. And I realized that not only do I love sharing my story, but I love hopefully helping other people who are struggling with anxiety and depression to deal with situations where they don't know how to feel. Getting a gig is amazing. Losing a gig is the worst. And several people I've talked to have all kind of shared their stories with all this stuff. And I guess I'm just one of the ones that wants to share with you guys, because it's, once again, it's not a cool thing. It's not something that's super popular, but I think it's something that's very, very important, and it's necessary, especially now where there's not a lot of transparency. So guys, I hope you got something positive out of this. If you ever want to contact me, shoot me an email or message me, and we can talk about it. But thanks so much, guys, and take care.